Much for being with us.
Thank you, Tanya. Glad to be here.
Can you please explain to me the proposed legislation,
Sure.
the voted upon legislation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Senate Bill 3484 is bipartisan legislation. It passed the Senate and the House. It is now on the governor's desk to sign into law. Very important legislation to regulate the e-bike, e-scooter, e-unicycle, if you can believe, industry right now that has been really concerning for my communities. I had chiefs of police, I had my mayors, parents. I'm a mom of 3 myself, and they were coming to me really concerned about the regulation of all of these high-powered devices that are going up to 50 miles an hour on our roads. So we put together some great bipartisan legislation. We met with the Secretary of State's office, all the stakeholders, park districts, state police, put together some very thoughtful legislation that is going to regulate this and provide some uniform statewide regulation with respect to enforcement of how to manage these powered devices on our streets and our communities.
Why do you think support for the bill was widespread? Why do you think it crossed party lines?
Because safety should never be any sort of partisan issue, right? Protecting children, our drivers, our community should never be a partisan issue. So this is a great way for us to work together to make sure we're protecting our constituents and taking care of our communities.
Can you run through some of the measures that would be taken if the bill is signed by the governor?
Yeah, so what we did, well, right now there's not a lot of regulation. So communities were actually passing their own ordinances to try to regulate. But of course, when one device goes from one community to the next, then there's different ways that the law enforcement is trying to regulate this. So they needed some sort of uniform guidance. So we have this legislation that regulates the different classes of these devices. So there's class 1, class 2, and class 3. Class 1 goes up to 20 miles an hour. Class 2 would go up to 28 miles an hour, which would require you to be 16 years of age to be able to operate that. And then over 28 miles an hour, you would have to have a license, registration, insurance, and you would be regulated under the Illinois Vehicle Code, so that if they're driving erratically or they're speeding or whatnot, law enforcement could actually be able to address those issues to keep communities safe.
You're a mom, I'm a mom, and often people will say, well, you know, it's up to the parents to keep their kids in line. And trust me, I've done everything under the sun. At the same time, not all parents abide by the same, expectations of their kids. So, I've tracked my teenager before. I'm watching their movement, and I'm thinking, oh, you're definitely not walking right now.
Yes.
And so why is it important to, I guess, how can legislation help parents to ensure that their kids don't get onto these e-bikes and e-scooters, whether they're allowed to or not?
Well, it gives parents that opportunity to say, listen, you're not of age to be able to ride this vehicle. So, for when you're dealing with that with your kids, you at least can point to the law now, as well as just more awareness, as the doctor said, being able to have parents understand the ramifications of what's happening on these devices, and that they can even go up to 50 miles an hour. A lot of parents didn't even know that they could go up over 20 miles an hour, let alone up to 50 miles an hour. So there's been some casualties and accidents in my district, and even deaths. So it's something that parents need to understand. This is a very serious matter, and we need to have regulation to prevent these kinds of tragedies.
Senator Hills, you've been quoted as saying that this is, you liken it to the Wild West.
Yes.
This issue of e-bikes and e-scooters. Is this a case where legislation is lagging behind technology, and what can we learn from this in order to stay ahead of these dangers?
So it definitely is the Wild West right now, and technology is going faster than the law can go. So this is a circumstance that we can actually address what's going on with technology, and this is something that's happening in other industries. We see it with AI, right? We had some great legislation to address some of those concerns as well in Springfield this last session. So we just need to, as legislators, make sure that we are keeping up with technology and protecting families and children.
Do you have any indication whether the governor will sign the bill?
I don't know, but I hope so, and I believe he will. I think that keeping families safe and children and drivers safe has to be a priority for him, as well as all the legislators that got involved in this.
Oh, we appreciate your leadership and your advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you.
And that is going to do it for us. That was Illinois State Senator Darby Hills. We will wrap up our Chicago Now, and we will be back with more news and weather after a break.